What's up? It's Mike Mal, and you are listening to the Athletor Podcast, where we dive into the processes, mindsets, strategies of some of the most successful athletes and coaches from all walks of life. Athletor Podcast coming at you. This week's guest is none other than head coach at West Virginia, Tim Flynn, and he gives us kind of a state of the union for West Virginia wrestling. He also talks a lot about the direction of NCAA wrestling as a whole. And I know we've been talking a lot about that, but getting his insight on this and what that means to wrestling as a sport in the NCAA, pretty fascinating. We also talk a little bit about what he's looking for in a recruit as he's recruiting for the Mountaineers. All that and more coming at you, Athletor Podcast. Don't go nowhere. Athletor Podcast, Coach Tim Flynn. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. Hey, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us today. I have a ton that I want to get to, but let's start off with, I feel like West Virginia doesn't get the like you guys are, and you did the same thing at the Borough. You slowly but surely trudge along and make progress incrementally over the course of years. And I feel like that's the same thing you did at West Virginia. So if we could start with just like the state of the union from West Virginia wrestling standpoint.
State of the union. I think things are in a pretty good place here. We're starting to, get better recruits. We're starting to get, our alumni and our donors are jumping on board. Obviously last year we were like a top 20 team in both the regular season and at the end. We're starting to get, some kids placed yearly, getting some multiple time All-Americans. And I think that's, it all kind of feeds into, the better you get, the better you can be, I think, because, you start attracting better and better kids and kids start buying in more. And so we're in a good place. We haven't been super healthy, the last couple of months, but yeah, I kind of like the kids we have, and I like where the program is.
So, and again, you did the same thing at the Borough. You take kids that, and this is something that you maybe won't have to do in the future, hopefully for you. Take kids that kind of flew under the radar, real good on top. Maybe they weren't world beaters on their feet, and you turn them into All-Americans. And Peyton Hall, I don't know that I heard of him in high school. I don't know that he was a top 10 recruit, but he's a stud.
Yeah, he was a good recruit. I think because he was in West Virginia, he wasn't maybe as sought after. He did place in some high level tourneys, and I do think it's getting more difficult to try to find like a kid that no one knows about. There's just so many, like you have the NHSCH, you got the Super 32, Fargo. You have all these big time tournaments. It's not that it doesn't happen, but obviously if you look back at all the All-Americans, many of them are from like the top 100 recruit list, so it gets a little more difficult. But yeah, it's always nice to find the kids that that can really raise their level.
It's hard, getting harder for sure. But what do you look for? Like, so what we try to do here is dig into the processes that make successful coaches and wrestlers that way. If it's not winning Super 32, or if it's not winning Fargo, and if it's not winning World Team Trials and making the team and stuff like that, what do you look for in a recruit that says, okay, this kid is Mountaineer material?
Well, obviously, we're like everyone else. We like to go to the far right of the bracket, right? So that's the easiest.
You start there.
Yeah, and you start working your way back, right? I mean, obviously, you want success. I think the best predictor of future success is.
Hey, don't go anywhere. It's Mike. We'll get back to the podcast in just a second. We got to pay the bills, though. Do you have an athlete that's looking to break into the social media space? we at athletorlive.com have a brand new in-depth tutorial done by none other than Caden Henshaw. If you don't know who Caden is, he's not even a Division I wrestler, yet he's got hundreds of thousands of engaged followers. Learn how to create engaging content, grow your followers, and open up new opportunities in the NIL space. Go to athletorlive.com/Caden and we'll give you the first module completely free.
Past success, right? I mean, that's why, the 4-time state champs get scooped up before the, 1-time state champ or whatever. So we always want the success, but I think if you can find the kids with passion, we really want to be around people who love the sport. If, hey, I need a month break or I'm burnt out. I don't really like people like that because I just don't think like that personally. I don't really get burnout, or else I think burnout means you're done.
Yeah.
So, but I think if you can find kids with a passion for the sport and they really enjoy it and they work at it, I think attitude and then, I try to identify a couple things that, and I'm sitting in here, I see Mitchell Port across the way here. These kids that are super competitive and really stubborn people. And so you start to see some traits that kind of really work well with our sport. But I think passion's the biggest thing. Somebody who really wants to be around it, wants to really work at their craft all the time. You have that kind of passion, and then you throw in your work ethic. I think you can go a long way.
Yeah, you can fill a lot of holes with guys that are super passionate about the sport. All right, we talked about the current state of affairs in West Virginia, but I'm fortunate enough to speak to NCAA coaches on a weekly basis, and the prognosis for NCAA wrestling as we sit right now seems a little grim. We're not real sure where we're headed. How do you see the landscape of the sport playing out at NCAA level in the next, let's call it 6 months to 18 months?
Yeah, I always think there's the doom and gloomers. There's people who are positive. I'm usually probably somewhere in the middle. You do have some concerns, with the way the sport's going, not our sport, but sports, with the revenue share and, the paying of the athletes and NIL. But, we all got to move forward with it, but it does concern you, where
Sure,
there's going to be 3, 4, 5 programs with, all the kids, so to speak, but I think there's always, we were just talking about it. You're always going to be able to, identify a couple kids that kind of fly under the radar. There's always going to be kids. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of kids that wrestle. There's only so many spots at this school and so many spots at this school. So even if there's only 5 teams that are giving out a ton of NIL money, there's got to be spaces. There's going to be spots for other kids to go. So from that standpoint, I'm not as maybe bleak as others, but yeah, the sporting world in college athletic, it's just changing a lot,
Can you, well, so here's the thing. It's funny, man. Again, we have these conversations almost weekly at this point because it's on the front of everyone's brain. But some people still kind of text me and give me feedback throughout the week saying, well, what is this revenue sharing thing? How does it affect wrestling? Can you break down exactly what that means and how it's going to affect wrestling?
Well, so a school takes in revenue, I guess, and they can split that amongst their athletes, right? Mm-hmm. So, one school, it might be, hey, the football team gets 90% and this team gets this much percent. So different schools are going to give different amounts to different sports, right? So from a pure, we're never on a level playing field, right? We've never been on a level playing field. this school has better facilities. This school has a bigger club. So from that standpoint, nothing's changing. But when you're throwing in revenue share, some of these kids are going to be getting NIL money, rev share money, full scholarships. Now you have some of these schools that are going to give out 50% or maybe double the amount of scholarships as another school. And so the playing field really is getting kind of like tilted. But again, if you're looking at it as the glass is half full, it's always been tilted, right? So, you know, when we were at Edinboro, we didn't have the facilities of another school. We're at West Virginia, maybe we don't have the same rev share as a different school. So that's always existed. You know, is it going to be tilted a little bit more? Maybe, you know, but what I'm concerned about really is that you get some of these schools that don't have, so maybe between West Virginia and a school might be like this, but now it's really getting out of whack. But what you hope is that, you know, with a scholarship and a good plan, a lot of kids are going to say, hey, I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to go here, whether it's, we'll pick a school that doesn't have wrestling, Florida. I'm going to go there because I'm going to get an opportunity as opposed to I'm going to be fourth string on this team. So like I said, kids want to compete. And even if there's 5 or 8 teams that quote have a lot more money than all the others, kids are going to want to go to those other schools too, because they want to get in there. They want to get to the NCAA tournament. It's an individual sport. They want to win the national championship and they want to follow that dream. So from that perspective, I think we're going to be all right, you know?
Yeah. The thing that scares me a little bit is the roster caps that are coming in August, I believe. Is that August? Can you just, as quickly as you can, or as succinctly, or dumb it down for people like me, explain exactly what that means and how it's going to affect wrestling?
Well, we have a 38-man roster and next year it's got to be 30.
That's
I mean,
it.
that's,
And I guess my question is, where is that coming from? Is that just an NCAA rule now? Is it?
well, so, you know, and again, I'm a wrestling coach. I'm not up in the high level meetings. You're not allowed to limit scholarships. They found that was not the right thing, or we're not allowed to do that. So we're not allowed to be capped at 9.9. What they do is now they'll cap your roster. They're allowed to do that. So they've come in and said, hey, you're going to have a 30-man roster. But I guess you're allowed to give out up to 30 scholarships. Now we won't personally,
I don't think anyone will, Coach. I mean,
yeah,
there might be 2, but aside from that, there might.
I just catch rumors. You probably hear more than I. I've heard a 20 for one school. I've heard a couple 15s, but most are going to stay the same, I think. But the 30-man roster is a big deal because there's kids that are on your roster now that are, you know, going to class and they were recruited to go to school at your school, and you're going to have to say, hey, there's not a spot here. So they're either going to have to stay on and not compete, not wrestle, or they're going to go to another school and find spots. And I think eventually that might strengthen, you know, some of the programs that are maybe ranked 40 to 70. And this might help Division II programs, right? Some kids might shift. So, but I'm not a fan of it because I think if the kids want to do the work, and it's not like it's costing us a ton of money. But again, I don't make the rules. I just follow them.
I guess what's tricky to me is like, okay, because we're now allowed to have 30 scholarships, and doesn't mean that we're going to have them, but why are you seeing schools like Cleveland State get axed when if you look at it from the outside, you go, oh, well, you can have more scholarships. Now, that might be a completely segregated conversation, and I'm using Cleveland State as an example because they're the latest one that's been on the chopping block. But, you know, something tells me that this money has to come from somewhere, right? And if there's simply not enough money to go around, wrestling has historically been one of the first to go. Now, I might be ignorant to other sports because I'm biased towards wrestling, but it seems like wrestling is one of the first to go. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think with the Title IX and well, they're always going to drop sports if they feel there's not enough revenue coming in to support all the sports. I personally think you got to go out and, get a fundraiser and try to do your best to try to keep the sports you have and provide opportunity for the kids. I'm talking about at the
admin level.
At the athletic director level, at the president level. But yeah, I'm sure it's always about money. You know what I mean? And what is the sport? I'm not in tune with Cleveland State, so what are we providing? What are we providing for the student athletes? What are we providing for the students? Like here, we're starting to get a better crowd. So kids are coming and people are coming from the community to watch wrestling. That's the best. I think Mike Moyer years ago said in one of those, we were down in Florida one weekend or something in the summer, and he's like, one of the best ways to keep your program strong is, fill it with fans. So it's important, right? You got to have a big donor list, maybe not just dollars, but hey, these people are excited about your program. People come to the matches, and then you have more importance, right? If you don't have anyone come to the match, no one donates, you can't say how great it is and how important it is. It's only important to the people doing it, right? So, but I think what you worry about, we're talking about the worries of the sport, if you feel like if you're AD, we can't compete, they've got so many scholarships and so much money and revenue money, then it's like, well, why are we playing this game, right? So if you and I are going to play a pickup basketball game against two people in the park, you're like, all right, let's do this. We want to try to win. If we're going to play against the Boston Celtics, it's like,
yeah.
And I think that's what starts to sway people. It's like, well, wow, this isn't even right. It's not a fair fight. And I think you can make it a fair fight by recruiting well. And we just talked about it. Kids want to go. You just got to identify the right kids. But yeah, the Cleveland State thing's awful. I think, they've done some good things there. And I know the coach, and I always think it's kind of the cowardly way out. I think people got to go and, at a higher level and hunt down funding, and they've got to do their part too,
So we actually have a course on fundraising. It's called Championship Fundraising, and we talk to guys like you and Rob Cole and Chris Ayers and about the things that they do to raise money for their program. And Cole and Kevin Dresser, these guys are at the forefront of this stuff years ago.
Job.
They do a great job. They do a really, really good job. But I guess what I'm trying to say is we, as a sport, we've kind of always picked ourselves up by our bootstrings, especially when things got a little bit wonky, right? What can the average, and so you're seeing guys like Hayden Hidley, right? Hayden's over at Stanford with Chris Ayers right now, and he is ingesting as much about fundraising as he possibly can, right? Because he knows that this is, look, if I want to be an NCAA coach, this is a huge part of the landscape. So what could you teach the Hayden Hidleys of the world about fundraising now in 2025?
Well, I don't know. He might know more than I do. You've got to get your alumni, and alumni support in general across the country, I think, is low. More of our donations are from, a very, very small amount of people. But wrestling, we're our own worst enemies, right?
Say it on this podcast all the time.
So, and for a lot of reasons, and here's one of many reasons. We all want to sit around and cry that a program gets dropped, but it's like, okay, are you going to the dual meets? Okay, I just told you, would Cleveland State drop if that gym was juiced every home match? I mean, the president comes in and goes, we ain't dropping this sport. Look at this thing, right? So we sit around and complain, but you got to, it takes effort. It takes a little bit of extra. It's like you tell your athletes, you got to do a little extra to be good, right? Well, you got to show up. Our alumni need to get in the car when they're a little tired from work and drive down and attend a dual meet, right? There's really three ways, like a fan, an alumni, anyone can help the program, right? And I used to have an acronym. What is it? BMW, the BMW system, right? They got the body is the B, show up, come to the matches, show up to the golf outings, right? Show up in body. The M is your mouth. It's you've got to tell other people, right? So it's not enough for me to go back. I got to say, hey, my classmate, I'm going back, meet me up there and communicate with others because we'll just use, Cleveland State. Coach Moore is he's running his team too. He can't talk to everybody. And, and I know you should, but it's like, it helps if one of their alumni calls 10 other ones and says, let's go back. So the M part is your mouth, and then the W is your wallet, right? We want to come in at the end and say, we'll raise the money. Well, why weren't you donating the last 10 years, right? Why are you donating now? Because we dropped it? It's like, where have you been? And I never want to ever spend other people's money because I think it's wrong. I don't know if you're spending money on cancer research. I have no idea what you do, but I do think we all can identify. Well, heck, I've missed a million meals in my life wrestling. I could have skipped the burrito today and sent that $10, $12, $15 to a fund. And if I do that once a month, that's a recurring gift, right? So you can get a $10 a month, $20 a month. And I'm not saying everybody, and again, you catch some heat for saying this, but people go out and they'll buy a beer with their friends or they'll waste money. They can spend $20 on a program that was important to them and that they felt greatly shaped their lives, right? But they don't. And so we say how great it is, how much it did for us, but then eventually you have to open your wallet, right? So it's like show up in body, communicate with others, and donate. And I'm saying $10. Get your name on a list. Hey, look, we have 10,000 people who donate, right? You can win a boxing match. You don't need one knockout. You can just pepper a guy, $10, $10, $10. Now, obviously, you need more than $10. Is it better to get the $1 million donor? Yeah, it's nice, man. But I think in general, we hurt ourselves because all the people who bitch and moan, you ask them, have you donated? Have you attended a match? Are you going back to where you went to school? Are you supportive in any other way? And the answer is a lot of times no. So we're kind of our own worst enemies, right? Yeah. So that's our goal as coaches. We've got to get people excited to do these things.
So how do you, aside from putting together a winning product, is there things that you do? Because again, West Virginia is not known as the wrestling hotbed. I mean, you're close to PA and stuff like that, but West Virginia as a state has not notoriously been the wrestling hotbed that it's kind of becoming too. There's some studs you see in Fargo and stuff like that too. But aside from putting together All-Americans and a winning product, what are you doing to get people out to dual meets, to get people excited about the program?
Well, I do think winning is the number one thing.
Of course.
Right. because when you win, I mean, why do you think if somebody has like, right now, if someone has Penn State into their gym, you'll triple or quadruple, you'll get way more fans. Why? They want to see, people want to see great wrestling. They want to see greatness in general, right? Alabama football comes in, sure, our stadium's going to be juiced, right? They want to see these really good people, and they want to see our guys compete against those people. So, we've got to put a good product out on the mat, you know, and it's got to be exciting. And I know coaches talk about that all the time. Like, people want to see, in general, look at the UFC kills it, right?
Yep.
People love combat. So if we're out there rolling around and we're not really aggressive, that doesn't inspire people. People want to see this, right? So I think you put a better product out on the mat. All the other things are like the basics. Your kids got to be good kids and people got to like them. But putting that product eventually is gonna produce. You'll get more fans, you know. But getting people, making them feel appreciated. You know, I just had a talk last night with an alumni just about like, how do you get the guys to come back? And we were talking about they got to feel appreciated. You know, hey, you were a part of this program, part of building it. People are more willing to give, I think, and come back if they feel appreciated.
Sure.
So
that makes sense.
But yeah, the number one thing is people want to see winning. I mean, that's why all the teams winning have the highest attendance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, look, it's 100% true, right? I mean, there is the anomaly, right? Like Rutgers hasn't cracked the top 10 yet, and they're in the top 4 in attendance, which is impressive that Goody is getting as many butts and seats. But for the most part, it's 1-for-1, right?
Yeah, but they have a really solid team, and they've had kids in the finals, and so it's clear right now. And again, from the outsider, wrestling's important there.
Yeah, wrestling's important in Jersey. In Central Jersey, it is way, way important.
Yeah.
It is. Dude, how about this? I'll go back there for like dual meets and I'll work the event. Like I'll work the camera on the ground. And people are heckling me. like they're heckling me. Like I'm like, holy smokes, dude. Just because I moved. Like, holy cow, dude. And but it's important, right?
Yeah.
And how do you get to that point? Well, that kind of brings me to the next point. It's in every town, right? Like there's Pop Warner, there's Little League, and then there's rec wrestling in every town. How do you get to that type of culture in places like the Southeast, right? Yeah. Where maybe football is king, or West Virginia where football is king?
Yeah. Well, again, I think what's helped us a little bit too is having a homegrown guy, Peyton Hall, doing a really good job. He's a 2-time All-American. He won the Big 12s. He's really, if you meet him and look at him, he's in his 5th year, but he looks like he's about 20 years old. He just is a good all-around kid. And I think you need some of these people who are program builders. You know, you get them to come out to watch Peyton, and then they'll stick around when Peyton's graduated. And but again, if you have exciting wrestling or you have some kind of tie, getting the people there, and once they have a good experience, they'll come back. You know, and so we're slowly getting some more fans every year here. So things are going pretty good, on that front. But look at like Penn State. I tell people they're killing it with the fans. When I went there, and I think it was 1850 or something. That's a little bit of a joke, by the way.
I got it.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys really think like, God, is it that old? So in the 80s, they were packing Rec Hall for Iowa and Iowa State. So they've had this fan base for so long that now they appreciate good wrestling, right? Sure. And clearly they have a very good product, right? But but that fan base is, and it's, you know, a couple more people come and watch, and new students, and maybe it hook them. And, but I think it's over time, you'll develop that fan base.
Yeah, no, it's fun to watch a match at Rec Hall and Bryce Jordan. It is. They do a good job. They put on a good show. Let's talk about Peyton Hall since you brought him up. He's real hard to wrestle, real hard to wrestle, real hard to score on, hammer on top. What does he got to do to get to the, like, Messenbrink is a son of a gun, right? Like, and that's the guy he's got to beat. So what does he have to do to kind of jump to that level this year in his 5th year?
Well, I think, you know, there's a lot of guys there. Obviously, he just lost to Bearclaw. I think the biggest thing when you have to wrestle a guy that's really, really good kid like Messenbrink is you've got to believe in your training, and you got to believe in yourself. You know, it can't happen unless you can, you know, actually believe it's going to happen or can happen, right? Or else if you think you have no chance, you have no chance. So I think that's the biggest thing, is just developing confidence in yourself and your abilities. Hey, as we all know, 7 minutes can feel like an hour. Oof. But at the end of the day, it's still only 7 minutes. And I know believe me, I know it's pure hell sometimes. It's 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So when you say anything can happen, yeah, it's 7 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, so like I'm wrestling, I don't know, and you almost have a takedown out of bounds, almost get one. I scramble out of one. You slip and fall, and I'm up 3-0. It doesn't matter how. These things can happen, and we see it all the time. So, and then you throw in a person, you know, with Peyton's abilities. Yeah, he can win. Of course he can, right? He can shoot. He can defend. He's hard to score on. He can ride a little bit. Just got to believe in himself and be trained well. And, you know, a lot of things got to click, but I think a lot of things got to click for everyone to, you know, anyone to win.
Yeah.
You know? So he can certainly do it.
No, I have no doubt. By the way, he's a freak athlete. Like, you see some of the stuff he does. He's a freak athlete.
He's
like,
flexible.
He is fun to watch. Yeah.
He has a good feel, like floating his body. Like, he just has some things that you can't teach. So,
can you identify those types of things? I don't want to call them intangibles, because you can see and touch that type of feel. Is there ways of identifying that, or even like the prospect of that? Because there's a kid on our team right now, and he's not getting any looks at all, right? And it's hard, right? Because he's a senior, first time in the lineup, right? Yeah. But we were number 3 in the country last year. Like, kind of, you get it, right? But like, I'm trying to tell some of these coaches, like, yo, he's really good. Like, he's just, you know, he grew 6 inches in the last 2 years, right? Like, he's just figuring out his body, and he's got a good stock that he comes from. His dad's Stephen Neal.
Yeah, I think you can. You know, the kid is out this year, Ty Waters. So his first year in high school, he had some good wins, but I think he was hurt at the end of the year. Or he either lost at the end of the year or was hurt. And then his sophomore year, it was vice versa. If he was hurt the year before, he lost. But he hadn't placed, and he's going into his junior year. And he came down to camp, I think, in the summer. And Portnoy's guys were like, "Dude, he gets freaking good."
Yeah.
Right? And he has a good feel. And you can see, like, he's just hard to take down. And we're like, you do a little research. You're like, well, why the heck hasn't he placed in the state? Because, you know, you're not apt to be, we need this kid. He hasn't placed in the state, you know, state tournament. But you can watch someone and see just their body. Just some people just have that feel. And, you know, and he did. And thank God we got him, you know, because, you know, we think the world of him. But I think you can see that part of it, just like you can see, you know, explosiveness, or you can see, speed,
Sure.
or conditioning. So I think you can identify that feel as well.
Yeah. Again, I can't say enough about and he's a great kid. This kid, it's Gunnar Neal, it's Steve's son. And the kid, first of all, has never pissed and moaned about not making the team. And you know what I mean? Like, just kept his head down, kept working, and finally starting to have some success now. And college coaches are going to be kicking themselves in the behind for not at least reaching out to a kid like Gunnar Neal. Okay.
Well, that's what we were talking about. Like, some of these, trying to find kids that other people haven't identified, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're always going to be out there, but how do you ensure that you get them over anyone else,
Yeah. And especially when you only got a 30-man roster, that makes things really challenging. And one of the things, and I don't want to spend all day on, I only got you for an hour. I don't want to spend all day on fundraising, but one of the things that I think it was it was Colat that he said to us was like one of the real big shames of having this 30-man roster is like, you're cutting off my donor base in a big bad way, right? He said, because it's not the two-time All-American NCAA champion that generally winds up giving back to the program after he's graduated and found success somewhere else. Those guys go into coaching, right? Those guys go into whatever, they go into the sport. And so they're making their own way through this. It's the guys that were 37th on the roster that go out and use the things that they learned in wrestling to create a great life for themselves, and they wind up giving back. We're cutting off a lot of those kids with this 30-man roster.
Yeah, when I was at Edinboro, we had a number of kids that were maybe second team, third team type guys that gave back and tried to endow scholarships. So you wonder if you had a 30-man roster, if some of those guys would have been, eliminated. So it's you do worry about that. And you also worry, with 30 man, it's not like you can, all right, well, the best 30 get the spots. Well, that's not true, because you got to have somebody work out with your heavyweight. Yeah. You got to have at least one other or two other big guys, right? So you kind of have to, you could have 5 or 6 here, maybe 2 here, but now, so you want to, you're going to eliminate kids that normally would be on the team, donate back, and hopefully, you always want them to bubble up, even if they don't eventually bubble up. Sure. I hate the whole thing. I hate limiting opportunity for kids who want to do it, but I understand it, and right now it's part of it. So
do you see junior colleges becoming more of a thing again?
Now that year won't count, they got to look at that. These rules change so quickly. I mean, you've been around long enough to see it. So now maybe a kid's going to go to junior college a year or two won't use eligibility, and now I'll go to your school almost like a red shirt, but I can go wrestle here. Who knows? I'd like to see a rule where it's just 18 to 24-year-olds, or I've just never been about, there's so many loopholes, and I don't want to get myself in trouble and people start texting me, but I'm not into the Olympic red shirt. I'm not into the gray shirt. I just, I went on a mission. Well, that's your choice. I went into the military. I just think it should be, you have so much time when you're done with high school. Yeah. And it's a little more of an even playing field. I don't think a 25-year-old should be wrestling a 17-year-old.
And it happens, and you can see it, and it's weird, and it's like, oh, he's just beating up a kid. That's not cool.
I know, and everyone's like, well, it happens at the Olympics, but I go, well, this is college wrestling. Yeah, it's called college wrestling. But I don't know. I'm just tricky, one voice, though. I'm just trying to think of a completely fair model. We won't have to worry about medical red. There's no medical red shirting. You're either healthy or you're not. It's it's called life, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of the COVID. Well, we didn't get a chance. Yeah, it's called life. Something bad happened, and you got to overcome it. It's part of life is things don't always go your way, you know, and if you make the choice to go, I want to go work for a while and then go to school, well, then you have less time. I just think it makes it easier too. Less rules and yeah.
Well, I'm not even going to go there. But all right. So with all that said, it is not fair and equal. It's not. But I want to ask, and maybe I'll play devil's advocate on the argument side of this, whether I recognize or believe what I'm saying is irrelevant. Are dynasties like Penn State's good for the sport?
I think they can be good and bad, right? That's a good fence sitter, right? Right in the middle.
Well, I don't have to play much of an argument there, do I?
They can be good or bad. Well, I think they're awesome when it's something for us all to aspire. It really sets the bar high. You know, when you get them into your gym, everybody in the world wants to come to your gym and watch them compete. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of good things there. Brings excitement, brings eyes to the sport. But yeah, if Cleveland State's like, well, we have zero chance of ever competing, we might as well drop. I don't know if that goes into people's thinking, but I think it's on the positive. It's like they're drawing more people to the sport, not just Penn State fans, but just like, hey, what's going on there?
And even if people are, so I'll argue for that point as well then, because I don't know that it is. I truly don't know that it's, because walking into an NCAA tournament knowing who's going to win is kind of boring, right? Like, you know, we knew who was going to win last year. You know, it was very obvious, and this year does not look much different, right? In fact, they might break their own doggone scoring record. But
I think you get just as many people go there to see that and go there to see, can Peyton Hall knock off Messenbrink? Can so-and-so beat Storaci's going for a 5th title? Can Kaizen? So there's all these other storylines that bring, eyes to our sport and people, to the arena. It's clearly not, well, I guess we'll see, but I don't think it's hurting our attendance, or I think
no, that was kind of the point that I was making. I'm like, attendance is up, numbers are actually up as far as if you look at where the best Division I programs are, numbers in high school and youth wrestling are up. So is it bad? Oh, maybe not. But there's a part of me that goes, well, it's, it would be really cool. It would be really cool. And maybe this is a discussion about having a dual meet national championship. Okay. It'd be, because I think that if it was a dual meet national championship, there's more wiggle room. I think somebody can beat them, right? But it's not, right? Because they're going to probably put 9 on the podium and maybe 10. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, going into an NCAA tournament, knowing the outcome as far as the team race goes, does leave a lot to be desired. And I remember when Kale took the job at Iowa State, him saying the dynasties are bad. And I'm like, till you're on the good end of one, and I have been known to get on Kale quite a bit on this podcast, and I'm not trying to get on him, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there are two sides of that argument. Would you like to see a dual meet national championship?
Yeah, I think we should have both. And years ago when we were all talking about it, I wasn't as into it before, but I think we should have both. And everyone's like, well, you can't have 2. And I'm like, well, listen, 5 years ago, you couldn't pay athletes, right? So don't tell me we can't have 2 national championships. Yes, we can. Yeah. I'm seeing athletes make millions of dollars. Could you imagine that when you were in college?
No.
Yeah, no. You weren't allowed to make more than being a counselor at camp.
No.
Right? You had to make the 4-time champ had to make the same amount of money as me.
Right.
And so it made no sense, right? And that was the real reason way back when, the name, image, likeness. Yeah. The national champ kid should get paid more at camp than the backup wrestler.
Yeah.
Right. And so his name is worth it or whatever. But, yeah, I don't know. Things change and some for the better, but I would like to see both, have it. And I don't care how you do it. I'm not going to sit and I don't have it laid out, but have a dual meet section, where and make it inclusive where every conference gets their top guy, the champion from the EIWA, the champion from the
EWL.
Yeah, EWL, the Big 12, whatever it is. And then, I don't know, pick a number, 4 more teams, the next 4. So if you're the second in the Big 10 and you're not going and you're ranked second, you should go. Yep. Right? So get maybe 8. Are there 8 conferences?
Sure.
8 and 8 more teams, 16 team bracket, hold it on a weekend or whatever, rest of the whole thing. It'd be awesome. And then have a couple tournaments, go to Midlands, go to something else, and then have an individual national championship.
It just makes too much sense.
Yeah.
I don't know why we can't do it.
Yeah, I don't even think it's bad to have dual meets after that. Hey, we're hosting Penn State. They just won the dual meet national championship. Or, just to get matches in.
Sure.
And so it doesn't all have to be tournaments. Hey, we got a quad. We're going to wrestle 2 teams. This team was 5th and this team was 3rd. I just, I'm all about having them both. More recognition for, I think, another marquee event where we could put it on ESPN. Yeah. I don't think it has to be like a either or.
No, I don't see why. I mean, we have dual meets, we have individual tournaments. Like, why shouldn't there be a prize at the end of the season or not even at the end of the season, the middle of the season for both of them? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, years ago, they started that Virginia Duels for that reason, right? It was a dual meet national championship. And I remember we wrestled Oklahoma State or someone in the finals, and it was awesome, and I just don't, I don't get it. I think you can do both.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've been on the train of it has to be sanctioned by the NCAA in order for it to work. And while I still probably believe that mostly, I do think it can work as a separate entity. I mean, look at football, right? Like nobody, the BCS is that tournament is the national championship, period, the end. There's no questions about it. And that's it. And everyone buys into that. And until we get full buy-in, I don't know that it'll be what we want it to be. But
I think sometimes you have to build it. You know what I mean? I think eventually you got to build it, because if not everybody wants to participate, that's fine. But if you make it so big that there's pressure for them to go from their fans, from their administration, and we've heard this new one's coming out next year, and everyone's going to get 20 grand. The winner's going to get this. And I don't know if that's enough money to make all the teams that should be there, but it's a start.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. You make it so, I don't know, intriguing, and I think everybody will want to go.
Essential. You make it essential. To call yourself the team national champions.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to do it. Okay. Let's get to our sprint here, Coach. Don't think about these answers. Just fire away. Here we go. You're good at this. I know you are.
Yeah.
What is the best wrestling shoe of all time?
Well, I got to go with Nike. Because there are guys.
Fair enough.
The Nike, I don't know, Inflict.
All right. Someone just mouthed that to you on the mats, but that's fine. Okay.
Let me say this. I had an old pair of Asics. They don't make them anymore. They were almost like they look like basketball shoes, but they were really thick.
Okay.
And you could wear them like to train in. You wear them outside. I don't know the names of them. They were black and orange. I kind of like those, but that
Was it the Rule-Ons? Was it like the
no,
aggressors?
yeah, but it was way before that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So I
Got
like
it.
those,
Oh,
but yeah, I like Nike.
all right, very good. Nike Inflix it is. Company man, towing the line. I get it. I get it. All right, next one. If you had, okay, you got four and they got to be American, okay? Who is on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Oh wow. I got to put Bruce just because that's my
Bro.
boy.
Yeah.
So Bruce has got to be in there, and John Smith seemed to beat me a couple times, so got to
He
put
made his way
John in
around that
there.
challenge, did he?
Huh?
He said he made his way around that challenge, did he?
Yeah, he did.
He did that a lot.
I'll give John a lot of credit. He was a handful. Like people, oh, he was slick. Yeah, wrestling.
Nope.
He's strong. He was just good.
Yeah.
I think it'd be hard not to have like Dan Gable.
Yep.
Just because of the name. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe not for the kids now, but man, Dan Gable, just that's all he ever talked about was Gable, you know? So we got Gable, Baumgartner, Smith, man, another American. I guess Jordan Burroughs, maybe Taylor. I don't get, maybe I shouldn't say Taylor because he's still coaching against us. So
Yeah. Especially in the Big 12 now, dude.
yeah, it's going to be great for the sport. Those two guys are superstars. I mean, I just watched Burroughs for so long and really in David. So those two guys come to mind too.
Okay. All right, but you only got to pick one of them.
All right, I'll go Burroughs just because he's
fair enough.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue. I mean, it's hard to argue, right?
Yeah.
All right. You have a magic wand. You can change one thing about the sport of wrestling and it changes tomorrow. What would it be?
You talking rules?
I'm talking about anything that Tim Flynn desires.
About the sport of wrestling. The coaches pay at West Virginia.
Oh.
I'm kidding. Let's see. I would change. I think I might change the dual meet thing. And I wasn't always on that train, but
Right.
yeah, I think that would really help our sport to have a dual title too. Both. Yeah, I like
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's important, man. And I think we're inching ever closer to it. I think, we talked about Goody, right? And he is leading the parade. Like like you said, I haven't, really thought it out. He's thought it out. He's written it out. He has PDFs and he has proposals and all he has to do is press send. Who wants to hear it? Let's hear it.
Yeah.
And he knows that they put together a good dual meet team every year, which is one of the reasons that they're, fourth in attendance every year. But they put together a pretty good dual meet team every year. They compete with those top guys in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And I think he knows that even if you put that tournament in, I don't know, give it a name, Kansas, somewhere in the middle of the country that doesn't even really have a wrestling team at Division I level, Jersey people are going to travel. They're going to go and they're going to support them. So, yeah, no, I think it would be really, really good to see.
I think that would, yeah. And, and I wasn't always on board because I thought, perspective, like when we were at Edinboro, we had a better chance of maybe doing well at the individual because we get a couple kids and score some points. But that's why I think you should have both. You can score some points and do well at the individual, or you can have a rounded team and gives you more opportunity to showcase your team. But I was going to say, so I thought anything about the rules. I'm on this kick of well, there's two things. One, I think all rules should be the same. High school, college, back points, out of bounds. It's just why are we hurting ourselves? It's hard enough to sell the sport. 7 minutes, 6 minutes, riding time, no riding time. On the edge, no, you can't get it on the edge.
Who are we protecting with 4-minute matches? Who are we protecting? What is this? It's bananas to me that my son has to wrestle a 4-minute match. Kid's got a gas tank.
Yeah, I don't even care if we go back to high school rules, no riding time. And I liked riding time. I like it.
Mhm.
I think they should be the same. And there's one pet peeve I have too, the last couple of years. Bottom man getting called for stalling when it's really the top man is killing him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we had a kid that wrestled, I don't know, I'll make up the names. So you ran out, you were wrestling for me, you were wrestling David Taylor. He took you down and turned you, cut you loose, took you down and turned you. And then 20 seconds later, you got called for stalling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so my argument is, well, there's 12 points on the board in 45 seconds. This guy
Right.
can score 12. And you're stalling if nothing happens in 20 seconds. If nothing happens in 20 seconds, the guy stalling is the guy that can score 12.
Right.
He's shown that he can. And I just think like getting handled isn't stalling.
Right.
And so
I think, look, if we're going to be honest, I think stalling should be gone anyway. It's too gray. It's too gray.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, why can't we just go to a step out? Like it's obviously worked.
Yeah, and I'm not totally on board yet with the step out, probably coming around. But just like the top and bottom, it's if one guy's physically dominant and I get you in a good position, I have that, the one-on-one, the arm's almost out off your back, and I have a leg hooked, and the guy's way bigger and stronger, he's ranked higher.
Yeah.
It's like an automatic call, and it's just I don't know. I just think I'm not a big fan of that call, but anyway.
I hear you. All right, Coach. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you spending some time with us. And good luck this season, brother.
Yeah, let's go Mountaineers.
We got one more sprint question that we forgot. We got
right, book recommendation.
Book. I'm not a big reader. The last full book I read was, I think it's called, is it 11 Rings or something from the old
Musashi?
What's that?
Miyoto Musashi?
No, who's the old basketball coach at the Lakers?
Phil Jackson.
Jackson. Is it 11 Rings or 9 Rings?
Yeah, 11.
I just thought it was kind of, and I don't read because I'm just too hyper. But I was just like, well, wow, this guy wins a lot. Maybe I should read this book. And it's just interesting. I kind of enjoyed that. So, yeah, not a big reader though.
That's cool, man.
I'm a doer.
Love it, Coach. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see you guys.
All right. Talk to you later. Wait. Don't go anywhere before you hit that next button. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, do us a huge favor. Click that subscribe button. And if you're so inclined, leave a review and share it.